Compass Mining is your trusted partner in Bitcoin mining. Whether you're investing in one machine or thousands, our customizable solutions are tailored to meet your needs. We are your experts in Bitcoin mining, offering a platform where individuals and businesses can purchase hardware, host machines, and access a range of ancillary Bitcoin mining services. We also specialize in large-scale site development and data center operations. Discover more at compassmining.io and see how we can power your success today. Hey miners, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the official home of power mining analysis. The countdown is on. Trump takes the Oval Office on Monday. We could not be more excited for what we expect to be a massive change in the Bitcoin landscape in the United States and the world. In addition to that, we should get details about the strategic Bitcoin reserve. We've got a massive option expiration date this Friday, not to mention some very favorable Q4 earnings expected in the next couple of months. There's so many positive catalysts we're waiting for and going to be dissecting in today's video. Before we do, take a second, smash the like button, you guys. Huge help to myself and the channel. Anthony loves it. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join and let us know in the comment section below how you're feeling about Bitcoin, the miners, and your portfolio heading into 2025. Now, with that being said, buckle up and let's get into it. Okay, guys, here we go. Tuesday morning, a little hiatus from the regular podcast, but Anthony and I are back in action just in time for the miners taking off in a big way today. Green across the board. We've got TeraWulf leading the pack, so to speak, Anthony, and Bitcoin making a nice little recovery now, once again, above $96,000 US.
Yeah, it's a good morning in Bitcoin land, and the Bitcoin price rallied this morning. Had a challenging day yesterday. We didn't podcast yesterday. Not a great amount of news out there. But today, a little bit more bullish today. We're only 6 days away from the inauguration. So the president, who's a big fan of Bitcoin, we saw him live in Nashville. And already we're seeing things coming out, discussing what might be happening, what might not be happening on that very first day.
Yeah, we certainly are. Talk about starting a new job on Monday. I can only imagine if your new job was the president of the United States. But you bring up a great point, Anthony. We're now only days away from that pivotal inauguration event, which could mean we're only days away from the strategic Bitcoin reserve as well. Companies, corporations, individuals, countries, they're all racing to beat the United States in this global game theory. Not to mention, we've also got the annual option expiration date coming up this Friday. So truly are in the final countdown stages on multiple fronts here. Now, before we get into any of the specifics, Anthony, we've talked about the volatility in this sector quite a bit over the last few months on the channel. You brought up a great visual on your X account talking about the psychological fortitude, I guess it takes to really hold strong, weather these storms, and continue to ride the Bitcoin train up. We all know or believe Bitcoin is going up over the long term, but this linear progression can feel anything but linear while you're on that journey. So can you talk to us a little bit, Anthony? You've been in a few cycles now. You've seen the ups and downs. You've learned some lessons. You've made some great profits. What is the psychological element to this HODLing, whether we're talking miners or Bitcoin itself?
Yeah, this is, you've got to set your mindset for the long term in this. You can't really, I don't trade Bitcoin, so I just buy Bitcoin and I keep it. I've never sold any Bitcoin in the last, nearly 5 years since I started buying. I've been through the last, 2 cycles now, and, you can see that there are bumpy roads all the way through. 2021, when it rallied to 69,000, and then literally, over the next year, it came all the way back down to 15,000. And here we are today having a discussion, and it's 96, nearly 97,000 today, and it's reached 108,000 back in December, around about the 17th of December. It reached all-time high. So, you're going to have those days where you have to switch off. But if you think long-term, pull the long-term graph up. Bitcoin now celebrated its 16th birthday recently. Pull the full picture up there and look at the graph and see which direction it's been moving over that period. And you'll see, generally it's going in one direction. and that's up. And with all the great news that we had in 2024 with the ETFs played a massive part last year. I didn't see any really bad news at all last year. We had bad news in previous years. We had FTX, two wars going on. We had inflation problems, lots of macroeconomics. We didn't have a safe government anywhere in the Western world, never mind outside of that. And so there's been some real challenges. But here we are. We've got a new president coming in who's pro Bitcoin next week, and the Bitcoin price is nearly 97,000. So, just sometimes, some days, just like yesterday, you just have to switch off to it. Ignore it. There's a lot of short-term trading out there. People are trading the price of Bitcoin over the short term. There's longs and shorts, and that's having an impact. We know now that significantly now there's less Bitcoin available on exchanges than there has ever been. It's really low now. You go back a few years ago, there was probably 5 or 6 times the amount there is today on the exchange that you could go out there and purchase. And we'll come on to some of the companies that have been buying Bitcoin lately, but I don't see any problem long term with Bitcoin at all. I'm just going to keep adding as I go along, keep growing it. Bought some in December. Last time I purchased some, bought some in December. We're buying some in 2025. Just adding to the Bitcoin hodl, and it's for long term. It's your pension effectively. So yeah, I don't try and worry about every 5 minutes what the price is doing. Otherwise, it will destroy you because it is volatile. It's not for the faint-hearted. It's not like going out there and buying, a safe stock on the stock market, one that you can keep for 10 years and it grows by 3 or 4% a year. This is something that will grow significantly over a long period. But during that period, it'll have times when, it'll drop 20-30%, it'll rise 20-30%. We've seen those periods in the past, and we'll expect them again. But with the news of 2024 and what's happening in 2025, I think the volatility will end up being more ironed out because people are buying it for a purpose.
I think so too, Anthony. We even saw yesterday that dip into the $89,000 range was quickly bought up. Now, wealth theory brings up an interesting quote saying the stress levels of a Bitcoin hodler are significantly lower than a Bitcoin trader. Bitcoin is meant to be stored, not traded. So you and I both have that strategy of buying and holding. I even feel like this strategy is stressful on most days. I can't imagine doing any of the day trading, but an interesting take on that. We'll come on to some of the political updates, ETF and buyers in a second here. But before we do, I did want to talk about the mid-morning market update because we did get a nice little shot of life into the Bitcoin miners today. So most of the miners are trading up. At the time we took this screenshot, TeraWulf was in the lead just under 10%. Most of the miners up mid-single digits. Big week for the miners, specifically this week because it's option expiration for January 2025. So we've got a couple screenshots here talking about some of the more popular strike prices, but interesting to look at these visuals compared to the mid-morning market update and see some of the price levels that option traders really have been targeting over the last few quarters. So Marathon, for example, nearly 28,000 $20 strike options open for this Friday. Riot, the $12 strike, is extremely popular with nearly 24,000 options open. CleanSpark targeted at the $10 strike, and then TeraWulf, interestingly enough, the $7 strike with over 30,000 open option contracts. So, Anthony, as we talk through the mid-morning market update, interesting to see some of the trading volatility you talked about earlier really taking place.
Yeah, we've been saying along, it feels like some of these options are, obviously holding back, the share prices. A little bit concerned about the mining stocks and the correlation with Bitcoin over the recent weeks. We've had some, days when it's been really green. Today's a great day for many of the miners. Good rises today in line with where Bitcoin's going. But if you look at some of the stocks where you feel, the share price, I mean, CleanSpark, hovering over just over $10 today, and go back to March, it was nearly $25 a share in March. I haven't seen anything other than a few internal issues. I haven't seen any sort of. There's nothing operationally that's been there to challenge that share price. They've grown their hash rate more than the strategy was expecting. They pretty much have a great utilization, so they're utilizing every machine that they install. They have good updates, and margin wise, they have great margins. There's only probably a couple of miners who can beat CleanSpark in terms of gross margin. So everything ticks the box, and then you look at the share price and you think, this share price is suppressed, and you can say the same against some of the other stocks as well. You mentioned Marathon, you mentioned Riot as well. Those share prices, those valuations were significantly higher during the year. And so it'd be interesting to see what happens next week after these options expand. Yeah, we'll have another view then. But yeah, it's probably time for some of these share prices to grow, especially as the Bitcoin price is rallying now towards the inauguration date.
Yeah, it certainly is. We also were talking about short interest the other day. CleanSpark, one of the highest in the sector with about 26% short interest. So it is interesting to me, Anthony. There was so much discussion from Trump and his administration about Bitcoin leading up to the election. Since that election, they've virtually gone silent. So that really leads us to our next point here. What's going to happen next week on Monday when Trump takes the Oval Office? Are we going to see an unexpected purchase, Bitcoin strategic reserve, or some sort of legislation come into office on day one, as we're starting to hear rumors about online? Anthony, what is your bet? Do you think we will see anything big in that first week of Trump in the office?
I'm not. I don't think we'll see anything in too big in the first week. There might be a verbal message out there, but as for the strategic reserve, that's still got a way to go before they can even start contemplating buying any Bitcoin or utilizing any Bitcoin that's been confiscated. We're seeing a number of states probably advancing quicker than Congress in terms of getting their own orders in place. So I think at the moment 10 or 11 states are very much interested in having their own strategic reserve. We're also seeing a number of companies out there, public companies that are looking to have a strategic reserve. Hut 8's announced, they've got over 10,000 Bitcoin. I think there's only 3 public companies got more Bitcoin than Hut 8 at the moment. And 2 of those are actually mining companies as well. So, this is happening, and hopefully, we'll get something. But I think if we hear something over that first year to say that this is going through Congress and they'll vote it through, hopefully they'll have the votes to get it through with the Republicans controlling both the Senate and Congress. So it'd be interesting to see that. A lot of people in America hold crypto, especially Bitcoin. I think there's 40 to 50 million adults, and I expect that we'll see positive news coming out of the White House in the early part of his 4-year term.
Yeah, probably a better tempered approach or outlook than I have, Anthony. I like to front run those things myself in my mind. And it's interesting to see a number of these big blue chip companies really timing some announcements around this inauguration as well. So we now have Meta's board that's come out and said they actually support investing a portion of their cash reserve, $72 billion cash reserve into Bitcoin. I think as soon as we start to see 1 or 2 of these big blue chip companies start to fall, really the dominoes will follow suit. Now, in addition to Trump coming in, the options, the strategic Bitcoin reserve, another thing we're waiting on, Anthony, is the Q4 earnings or the quarter over quarter earnings for a lot of these miners. So when can we expect that? And can you talk to us a little bit about what some of the highlights of those earnings may be? Compass Mining makes Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone. Start mining in as little as 48 hours with our turnkey hardware, online and mining directly to your Bitcoin wallet within 2 business days. Find out more at compassmining.io and get started now.
Yeah, so those earnings will start to be announced, I'm going to say early in February, and they'll go all the way through to April, because if a company is accounting period is the calendar year, that means their Q4 was between October and December 2024, they get a bit longer to publish their earnings because they have to be audited accounts, so they get longer. If it's just some miners have weird earnings periods, and it could be like from say the 1st of June to the 31st of May, or the 1st of July to 30th of June. If it's just an ordinary quarterly update, you'll see those come out in February. But anything that is end of year will probably at least be March, and some of them will probably be April, because they're given that extra time to put them together. Now, what do we expect to see? Well, we know what the closing price of Bitcoin was for the previous quarter. I think it was around about $63,000, and I know absolutely what the price was for the end of December. It was $93,429. So if you just think in simple terms, the Bitcoin price has grown by $30,000 a coin during that period. So revenues will be accounted significantly higher than they were the previous quarter. Now, it didn't go to 93,000 the first month, so obviously, there'll be a valuation base as it's gone through there. But any HODL that these mining companies have is allowed to be valued under the FASB rules if you're using GAAP accounting at the current valuation. So for those companies that have got big HODLs, that's the likes of Marathon Digital, Riot Platforms, Hut 8, CleanSpark, Hive, DMG, CIFR Mining. And then you get down to likes of Gryphon Mining, who also have a HODL, and there's probably a couple more out there that I haven't mentioned. But we get down to those companies have got a HODL, they're able to value it at the 93,429. So bear in mind they would have valued their previous HODL at 63,000. That's a nice uptick in terms of a position that goes to the net income. So it's unrealized gain, which counts as part of their it goes within cost, but it's actually a positive, so it'll reduce costs. It's not a cash position, not benefited any cash or anything like that, but because they have a higher valuation, these companies are allowed to record that valuation in their accounts. And so it goes into the income statement. It also goes obviously onto the balance sheet because it is a valuation of an asset. And so, their balance sheets will be much more stronger because of that as well. So, when you're thinking about book value of these companies, that's going to increase. And you think about the fact that, bear in mind what the likes of, say, Marathon Digital had at the end of September and what they got at the end of December. It's, two different significant amounts of Bitcoin. They purchased, I think, $1.8 billion of Bitcoin, plus they were mining significant amounts for those 3 months as well. So, they're at, getting on for nearly 45,000 Bitcoin at the moment. So they'll have a significant book value increase than what they had previously. And it all helps in terms of all their financial ratios. So all the ratios look really good. They'll all have strong net income positions. Yes, you can look at sort of like other terms like the adjusted EBITDA, which takes account of more of the cash items that these companies are expending. So we want to make sure that the businesses are able to run from a cash perspective. So revenues, less cash costs, you want to make sure that's positive. So we can take away the things like depreciation, things like gains, things like stock compensation. All those are real costs, by the way. I'm not trying to mitigate the fact that we shouldn't be including them. They should absolutely be included. But, we're looking at for running a business with cash. You also want to make sure that you have enough cash coming in to pay your bills. We'll see that quite clearly when they release their earnings. But I expect to see, as I interpreted for the last quarter, where we had literally a sea of red, except for one company, and that one company had a couple of big one-off benefits in the quarter, which helped them have a green period. But the majority of miners, all bar one, had a red period. I expect pretty much all the miners to have a green period in this latest quarter, really on the grounds that the Bitcoin price rallied significantly in that 3 months.
Yeah, it should be a complete or polar opposite from what we saw in Q3. And as you say, all of those financial ratios and metrics are going to look quite nice quarter over quarter. Not to mention, as I brought up in one of our prior videos, a lot of investors, specifically institutional investors, have prerequisites on their screeners. They need positive earnings per share. They need a certain amount of earnings growth. A lot of those really wouldn't have been eligible in Q3 and maybe now. So speaking of buying and opportunities here, Anthony, we saw Michael Saylor, MicroStrategy, come out for the 10th consecutive week, continuing to purchase Bitcoin. We've also got a nice little chart here from HODL 15 showing 60 of the top companies that now have a Bitcoin balance sheet strategy. And right behind him with a very similar looking update, Eric Semler from Semler Scientific. So despite the volatility, Anthony, there are people and companies out there that are continuing this dollar cost average strategy into Bitcoin. Do you think this is ultimately the best way to get exposure into this underlying commodity?
Yeah, it's to, regular smaller purchases of Bitcoin. Then you get, you get the highs and the lows, and you sort of what they call dollar cost average all the way through. MicroStrategy have just been literally buying Bitcoin, every I was going to say every month, but it's even been far more often than that. So they've just purchased another, 2,530. Average price of just under 96,000 per coin, so they benefited from this pullback in the Bitcoin price. That takes them exactly now to 450,000 Bitcoin, which is, getting on for 2.5% of every Bitcoin that's ever going to be mined. That's a significant amount for something that we, like to look at as decentralized. You've got one organization there that's got, a significant amount. If one company in the world had, 2.5% of every dollar, that would be a big, big company. Bigger than any of the companies that you do at the moment. But this is my only sort of like concern, because we've also seen one of the ETF funds as well reach that level of Bitcoin, and that means you've got two entities controlling 5% of all the Bitcoin. That's my sort of like thoughts on potential issue with it. But Michael Saylor's been very clear. He's not going to stop buying Bitcoin all the way through, and he's going to leverage that company to do that. And who can fault him? I mean, he's taken a company that was valued probably at less than $1 billion into a company that's probably valued heading towards $100 billion now. So he's grown the value of that company 100 times in the last 4 years. Not many CEOs can have that on their CV.
No, they certainly can't. And that's why we're starting to see so many follow this playbook that Michael Saylor's laid out. So that's another thing we're waiting on for next week. Once the official administration changes in, I would expect a lot more companies may start to publicly disclose those in their Q4 filings as well. So as we say, a lot going on this week, but a lot to be excited for next week as well. Speaking of excitement, we've got two big press releases out from Gryphon Digital Mining this week talking about their growth strategy for 2025.
Yeah, I mean they announced a couple of updates in the space of a couple of days last week. We know that the termination of the hosting agreement with Coinmint was happening at the end of December, so they've got to obviously relocate those miners. They've announced new co-location agreements and signed a deal with Block Fusion, which will host just under 5,000 of those miners in Niagara Falls, New York. This agreement, provides Gryphon with about 12 megawatts of power. And for that, they're going to pay a monthly fee of about 156,000 with any variable power costs passed through without any markup. So that sounds like a reasonable deal there for them. And remember, Gryphon are an asset-light company, so apart from three or four of their employees, they pretty much host everything out. Additionally, they've also secured, a co-location agreement with Mawson Mining to host 635 miners, with the potential to expand that to close to 6,000, 5,880 miners at the Mawson facility in Midland, Pennsylvania. The agreement offers 20 megawatts of power at $23.50 per megawatt hour, with a minimum monthly fee of approximately 165,521. And basically, if you look at these, these partnerships, it's showing the company is looking to, significantly grow operations, during 2025. The second update, which was eye-catching, was, on the 10th of January, they signed a definitive agreement to acquire an 850-acre industrial site in southern Alberta, which effectively marks a step in the expansion into green energy and high performance computing. The site's currently owned by Cactus Energy, and it offers access to dual natural gas supplies, grid connections, and carbon sequestration capabilities, with the potential to scale, and I'll say this time, potential to scale up to 4 gigawatts of power capacity. The deal's expected to close by April 2025, so we know that the team at Gryphon have been working hard through December on this. We tried to get Steve on the podcast recently, but he's obviously been, too busy with these announcements coming through. A lot of work behind the scenes, and like I said, there isn't a great deal of staff. The site infrastructure aligns with the strategy the company's trying to build in meeting again its AI and HPC demand. When we look at what some of the other mining companies are achieving in HPC, look at the benchmarks of, project revenue, there's a potential here for anything between 1.5 and up to nearly 10 million annually per megawatt. And if you think about, 4 gigawatt capacity, that asset itself could generate 5 billion in revenue, which would, if it was able to achieve it, position Gryphon, amongst the leaders in the digital infrastructure market. Additionally, the site comes with an experienced energy team led by Harry Anderson, the former Chief Operating Officer of Pembine Pipeline. And, this acquisition follows Gryphon Mining's December move to secure the British Columbia natural gas assets, scaling capacity to 1 gigawatts. The total transaction value was 27 million Canadian dollars, which also included a number of restricted shares for the Cactus management team. So we hope to get Steve on. There's obviously a lot of questions to unpick with that update there, but 4 gigawatts. That's potential. I mean, we hear a lot of the companies, even Soluna, have this pipeline of 2 to 3 gigawatts. A lot of companies will quote what they have and then say they have access to more. And Gryphon obviously doing that there, but we want to sort of get Steve on the podcast and get him to sort of explain in a bit more detail so that we can see that how that strategy is going to play out. But it's 2 good updates in the space of 2 days.
Certainly is. And like you say, quite an eye-catching headline there with the 4 gigawatt potential. But I will say, Anthony, when the initial ban on mining happened in China, I live in Alberta. My wife's in the oil and gas space. A lot of my friends, there was a ton of miners that were sending rigs over to Alberta to harness this excess flare gas or sequestered gas. So I think they definitely are onto something. How big and how quickly they can get to scale, time will tell, but definitely an opportunity here in the oil and gas province of Alberta. So with that being said, the final thing we were waiting for and is no longer a wait, Miner Madness 2.0 kicked off this week yesterday. Bitcoin Bella, last time I looked, was leading the analyst table. We've got more analysts, more entries, more prizes than ever before, Anthony. What a great way to start the new year.
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, we've got I think 20% more entries this time than we had in Miner Madness 1, so that's great. We have more analysts. We've got more analysts wanting to be analysts on the board there. I mean, I know you've just recently got requests from people to see if they can go on the analyst board there. So we'll go through and see how they do in this competition. Maybe put them forward in the next competition there. But at the moment, we've got 14 analysts. And if I look at, the current live board, Freedom by 40 is actually leading today, but this thing can change, very quickly. At one point yesterday, I was leading the competition. Now I'm sort of like, in the probably the bottom third of the competition. So we're in early days at the moment. Not even completed a full day one yet. So let's give it a little bit more time. But this will run to the end of March. People have put all their Bitcoin price in as well, and it's interesting to see even from the analyst leaderboard. The average for the analysts is probably about 135, 140,000. So, all the analysts believe Bitcoin price is going to do really well over these next 2.5 months, and we'll see how that goes. See who gets it closest at the end of March.
We certainly will. And make sure you guys, if you don't already sign up for our newsletter, it's 100% free to do. You'll get updates on all the Miner Madness competition and most recent developments in the space. So make sure you sign up for that on the website, subscribe or follow the channel, both on YouTube and X. And we look forward to seeing how that competition progresses. So Anthony, as we say, a few more days left to wait here. Your guess is as good as mine where Bitcoin and the miners will trade over the next few days. But if you guys step back, take a longer term view, we're confident both of these assets or investments are moving in the right direction. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. How are you feeling today and so far in Q1 about the mining sector? Feel free to hit the like button, subscribe, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.